Start.
The show can't start until we crack open a bottle of Revelton. Whether it's their crisp, clean vodka, the bold spice of their rye whiskey, the rich smoothness of bourbon, or the original honey whiskey that started it all, every pour is a taste of craft and passion straight from the heart of Iowa. So pour yourself a drink, settle in, and get ready to relax, laugh, and enjoy the show.
Hey, it's Andrew Downs. I'm proud to support Three Beards Media, and I would love to work with you. If you need merchandise for your company, organization, band, softball team, whatever, I can help. From name brand apparel to promotional items, large orders or small, online stores, and more, I can help your brand stand out. AKC Marketing is local, based in Johnston, and we are an employee-owned business, so our costs are low and our turnaround times are fast. But most importantly, we give you personal service to make sure you get exactly what you're looking for. Email me at andrew@akcmarketing.com or find me on social media, and let's make some cool stuff together. Now sit back and enjoy this Three Beards Media podcast.
Red and gold on the edge of the sky, feel the rumble, hear the battle cry. Out in Ames where the storms ignite, we don't back down, we rise and fight. Jack Tri-State's name, yeah, it echoes strong. A story of honor still marches on. Through the rain, through the pain, through the fire we roar, cause we were built to thrive in the eye of the storm. Feel the ground shake, hear the crowd roar. Cyclone power, can't take no more. Legends rise, this is our norm. We stand tall in the eye of the storm. There's a cyclone blowing on the outskirts tonight. Jack Trice shakes when the team takes flight. Milton's rocking, hear the magic call. We rise together, we'll never fall.
Welcome back to In the Side of the Storm, where we talk all things Cyclones. We are live from the AKC Marketing Studio with Andrew Downs and sponsored by Revelton Distilling Company out of Osceola, Iowa, as well as Iowa Beef Steakhouse, the great Julia Bradshaw, and Style by JJ Boutique. And now the official realtor of the show, Jenny Farrell with RE/MAX. I'm Dave Larson here with my Storm Team partner and Cyclone great, the legend, Marcus Fizer. Marcus, it's been a while.
Been a couple of days, couple up and down days, but we're here.
I totally get it. There's a lot to kind of get through, but before we do, I was glancing over, and the women's McDonald's All-American game is on, and it gave me flashbacks because I remember watching your All-American game when you were coming out and heading to Iowa State. And believe it or not, you can catch that game on YouTube. I found a screenshot of you and the infamous goggles that we've talked a little bit about in the past. What do you think?
Yeah, those are terrible. I hated those things, man. Hated them, but hey, they got the job done. I was just a kid hooping.
Yeah, I saw that and I thought, I've got to pull that up there. That's just too much fun.
We got to get some more McDowell All-Americans. I mean, I know everything ain't work out too well with Omaha, so I mean, I think TJ definitely has a program now that, should be able to attract more.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about especially the returning starters and the guys that are coming in. There's a few that were I wouldn't call them all McDonald's All-Americans, but they were the Mr. Basketball of their state. So I think that's a pretty promising sign. Obviously, last weekend, big disappointment on Friday. Cyclones were in Chicago, taking on Tennessee and losing 76-62. It just, I think that some time has passed. Emotionally, I've been up and down as a fan. I was actually there in Chicago to see it take place. Saw all the trophies and all the Bulls memorabilia. I bet that was a fun place to play for you, Mr. Fizer.
The mystique of it all was fun. I mean, backing up the championship Bulls and that dynasty wasn't fun at all. I mean, just to have a lot of young guys that were trying to find their career. Man, we played a lot of basketball. I think the oldest person on the team was Freddie. I think Freddie was like 26, 27, at the time. So, we had a lot of young talent. no direction. I jokingly, say, we were instant millionaires in the heart of Chicago. And he was just everywhere, just really, really didn't have any kind of direction. But the whole mystique of everything and the dynamic of what the Chicago Bulls was, I think the biggest thing I got out of it is when, the starting lineups was announced and, the whole, the whole mantra that they play, and now that whole thing go to running. So that was the biggest thing that I definitely enjoyed.
So it's pretty cool for me. I've never been to the United Center, but to walk in and to see the Jordan statue that we've seen countless times on Inside the NBA and all the other programs. Certainly as Jordan had retired, and that's sort of a go-to whenever there's television cameras there. But that was pretty cool to see in the midst of the tournament and the action for the Midwest Regional. My son and I had a blast in Chicago, notwithstanding the game, obviously. We had some really outstanding tickets, as a matter of fact. You can see behind us there, we're in the second row with the media right there in front of us. And I would argue we had even better seats because the media were down on the floor level and we were at least up a couple of rows. But just some incredible tickets and right there for the tip-off of the game. And
nice.
Yeah. And I tell you what, Tennessee came out, they were large. There's no doubt about it. It's hard to judge when you're even at Hilton and you're in other venues, but to be so close to see how large these guys are, it's astonishing and how athletic they are at that size too.
Yeah. People don't understand how big, athletes are. I mean, especially basketball players. I want to call these guys pros because a lot of them are going to be pros. But in those kind of settings, like you realize, I see, like Magic Johnson or Charles Barkley on the commercials with Sam Jackson now and all that different stuff. You see, Magic and you see Barkley and Sam Jackson be, and then from the movie, Sam Jackson looked like. He's about 6'3", 6'4". I don't know how tall he is, but on the movie, he looked pretty tall. But when he's standing next to basketball players, like he's the guy that's small in the middle, looking like Spike Lee to everyone else. So, the guys are tall. For the most part, we just do the things that we can do. It doesn't necessarily, we don't think, oh, you're too tall, you shouldn't be able to. Your mind, muscle reactions and muscle memory just do what you're accustomed to doing.
And so we had a picture there, and it's kind of tough to see, but none other than Michael Wilbon was on the sideline. So that was pretty cool to just kind of be in the crowd. And we have to understand too, when you have these regional sites such as the Chicago, and the fans are coming out for big games like this, and you've got Tennessee, Iowa State, obviously Michigan on the other side. Those are some very appealing matchups to be able to go watch and see for a weekend. And it's too bad that we were not invited or involved in the Sunday game. I actually had tickets for that game as well, but we're expecting it, right? Tennessee was the number one offensive rebounding team in the country. They showed it. They doubled us up on rebounding, total rebounds, offensive rebounds. And I don't know if Joshua Jefferson, he's not really that physical presence down low, but he is a presence. How much do you think his loss had an impact in that game?
I think it was huge because, not even necessarily to the fact of like how much of a physical presence or anything like that, even just like George Niang, like, the pressure that they can put on the defensive players. Getting guys in foul trouble. I had a lot of guys that were, a lot taller than me in certain circumstances, but with my athleticism and my jumping ability and things like that, I always try to get them into foul trouble, jump hooks and things like that. You get them in foul trouble, now they're a little bit, they're not crashing the board as hard. They're not guarding as hard. So not having a guy like Josh out on the floor, and Josh plays a lot out front, where, you being guarded out front, we can take guys off the dribble or dribble a handoff and then screen and roll, or fake handoff and roll to the basket and put pressure on the defense. So not having that was really, really big. You don't have to worry about that aspect of the game, and you could just sag inside and cheat on getting rebounds and putbacks, cheap putbacks. So I think it was huge.
Well, and I've heard this commented on other shows and whatnot, but you miss a Joshua Jefferson. You're right. You pull a big off of him, and where does that big go? Well, they likely go to Momcilovic and Buchanan, but Momcilovic now, he's a taller guy, but he has shown throughout the year that if you put a very physical, tall, athletic defender on him, it sort of dilutes his scoring ability or capacity because he's got the hand in his face, he's got the quickness and the height that goes with that, which sometimes you saw that during the Big 12 season, but really came to play on Friday against Tennessee, where he just didn't feel like he had the room, and he didn't shoot very well either.
Yeah, that shouldn't really matter. I mean, if there was one frustration, that was a frustration that I had. Like, you being such a dynamic offensive player, you got to put the pressure on the defense, not wait and see what they're going to give you. Put the pressure on them, make them make a decision on how to change their game plan of what they were going to come out to play you, and just don't revert back or don't buy into the things that they want to do. Once they understand that they've gotten you where they want you, then it's hard to have success from there. And I mean, I would have definitely loved to see them shoot the ball a lot more throughout the course of the entire season, let alone the other night.
You bring up an interesting point, and I guess I hadn't thought of it, but so are you suggesting that it was more on the defensive end that was the struggles, or offensive? I'm thinking defense or offensive just because we shot poorly from the free throw line. I think we were 60%, 15 for 25. Outside, just 5 for 23. That if you shoot a normal 45% from three, okay, now we go from 5 and 23 to 9 and 23, where there's 12 more points. You add in a couple more free throws, now you're at 15, 16 points. That's the difference in the ball game. And we haven't even talked about on the pressure, which you're bringing up, is that if we turn the ball over a few more times, and more importantly, if we don't allow them to get those additional rebounds, they just crush us on the boards. It's a completely different ball game.
Yeah, when you're looking up at the scoreboard or have it in your mind about how you're getting dominated on the glass, that tends to play a role in your mental. And then if you're not making shots, and then you're missing free throws, then you put all that in together, and then it's just a snowball effect that's not going to work out in your favor. So, it's unfortunate that it happened at the time that it happened for us. It's unfortunate that Josh, went down with the injury, but, the guys fought hard. Really wasn't expecting much from the whole outcome against Tennessee, because I just knew they were going to be too big to overpower us without him. So the guys played extremely hard as they could to go out and put a product out there. It just fell short.
Another thing as a fan, and again, I've been up and down, I'm a bit of a homer. That's pretty safe to say. But, you start looking at it going, at some point, when are we going to break through?
Yeah.
The Cyclones are now 1-7 in Sweet 16, with your team being the lone team to even make it to the Elite Eight. And one would argue you guys should have been to the Final Four and probably played the championship game in Auburn Hills that year against Michigan State. But, you look back that we had this season with the ankle, with Joshua Jefferson's ankle. You look back at George Niang and his broken foot. It's just, at some point, you got to believe that things are going to turn, and we're going to be, instead of being 1-7, we're going to be 6 out of 7 in a row, making Elite Eights and Final Fours. I'm anxious for that to start to take place, and for the ball to finally bounce our way, much like we've seen in football, right? We've started to see some traction there, where we're winning 10, 11 games and going to Fiesta Bowls, and we're starting to see some of that. Although obviously new coaching staff in place and a really entirely new team. But I'm really anxious to see TJ, and he made reference to this too, that it's going to happen. We're going to turn the corner. We're close. Do you get that sense as well?
Well, I felt really good about this year, and I've been saying it. I think more so this year, I've been like disappointed in some of the losses that we had. I felt like we shouldn't have lost, but still, I feel good about this year. But the time comes and goes extremely fast. I mean, I saw that whole stat about the team that I was a part of was the last team to advance past the Sweet 16. But you've seen us in the tournament, so often. I don't think it registers that, a couple losses we were, the first round and out or second round and out or whatever the case may be. But I felt good about this year, and that's why I was so upset, started that game. Young fella just a straight to the basket layup. It wasn't no, him getting shoved out the air. It wasn't no malicious takedown. It's just a straight layup. And to have that kind of injury happen to an All-American on your squad it was so. When I tell you I did not, it's kind of like, when my kids upset me from doing whatever, something that they're not supposed to be doing, and they're talking to me, and I'm, paying attention to something on my phone and just tuning them out. That's what the rest of the game was. Basically that's what the rest of the game was for me, because I was like, I cannot believe, and I know from having that injury, going through, a twisted ankle like that, even seeing, Marcus Jr. has that injury now that he's rehabbing from, and how his ankle was swollen. I knew Josh Ayton was going to be the exact same way, and he wasn't going to be able to be available for us. So that was the biggest thing for me that made me just so upset, to the fact that here we are again, another year, one of the greatest teams that ever been assembled for Iowa State in the program again, that we can make a deep run. Here's another situation where I feel like we're not going to go far because of X, Y, and Z, and we're going to have to revamp it all over again.
If you were to give a letter grade or a score for this year's team, what would you give it?
I don't know if you can get in between a minus and a plus, but I say a solid in between B minus and a plus, just from the fact that we lost some games that, we started the year off, even with Arizona being undefeated for some time, and Nebraska was undefeated for a long time, and then Michigan doing extremely well. I felt like we were in that echelon of a ball club. Then we ran into some issues, so it's like, man, a couple of these losses, then we lost Texas Tech at home. Those type losses we don't need, just from the fact that, and I think in the terms of the ways of that, like, had we been strong enough and been bumped to that, number one seed, we may have not ran into the team. I forget who we played against that just twisted his ankle against. It would have been that game, that situation, and that place to where that occurred. And maybe, we'll still be playing at this moment right now. I think
that was the first 3 minutes of that game. It was Tennessee State, right?
That's what it was, Tennessee State. So maybe it wouldn't have been Tennessee State. Maybe we would have played somebody else, and he would have had, a good game, and we blown them out, and then we advance. So when I think about stuff like that, I think like, man, how does this continue to happen to us when, we're just trying to put together something to be dynamic and move forward into the tournament. And I'm telling you, man, when that happened, and when I saw he didn't get up, we love, especially my team and, my ex-teammates and things like that. Larry Stacey had a 2-second rule, literally. If you hit the ground and you're not up in 2 seconds, you're coming out the game because you got to be injured. Something that's going on. So we just seen guys fall out the air and pop right back up. Mike Nurse mouth bleeding. I'm okay, coach, because you don't want to come out the game. So that's my mentality when I see a guy on the ground. How fast is he getting up? Because, you can hit the ground. He scored the ball. You can get up, and now you got to get back on defense. When I saw he wasn't getting up, I knew it was pretty bad. And then when I saw them having to help him up, big man, I'm biased. We don't like nobody to help us up, and then have to carry us off the floor. Nah. So I knew it was going to be pretty bad.
So if I heard you right, you would score between a B plus and a B minus. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So B.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
B plus, B
I
minus.
see. I would score higher, and the reason I say that is, remember coming into the year, there was still a lot of uncertainties of how this team was going to look with Blake Buchanan coming in, not knowing exactly how that was going to fit. You know, we're losing some guys from the prior year, and Keyshawn and Curtis, and y- while we were excited, if you would have told me at the beginning of the year, hey, Dave, you're going to have a team that's going to make the Sweet 16, do you sign up for it today? I'd say yes. You
I
know,
mean, I
if
felt
you,
like we was gonna make it at least to the tournament and that far. I mean, I didn't expect them to come out the gate. Where do we go? 15,
yeah,
16, and 0? You know, once I saw how we were rolling and we were playing, then we sitting at a positive A. But then when we lose, to BYU and then we lose to Texas Tech, like we got to go to BYU and still win that game. It doesn't matter, if
in
they got a
Cincinnati,
lottery.
that
It's
Cincinnati
Cincinnati.
loss still burns me.
See
Yeah.
those games right there are the ones that really, really I feel like hurt us in terms of us being on that A level of where I expected this team to finish. Josh didn't get hurt until the NCAA tournament, so it wasn't until then. I feel like we should have continued to be on that upper echelon to where, because we always knew, we were chatting about, man, are they going to try to put us down to a 3? They always don't never want us to put us at a 1. When we have good seasons, let's satisfy them with being at a 2, and just move into the tournament. But I think we should. I think the way that we were playing early on, we lost some steam and lost a couple of games. We should have been on the top seed.
I had a ton of fun this season, though. And if you would have, again, told me that, hey, you're going to make the Sweet 16 and lose your best player, your All American player, and still be in the 16, I would sign up. The frustration is that towards the end of the year, through all of the wins, through all the losses, we had that back-to-back weekend where it was Kansas on Saturday at home, Houston at home on Monday. All of a sudden, I took notice again because we were back. It felt like we were back. At one point we were when the early rankings came out for the NCAA tournament, we were slotted as a number 1 seed. That got me excited. That's what makes seasons like this so rewarding as a fan, to be able to see. Yeah, I'm disappointed with the finish. Maybe I would be more disappointed if Joshua had not been injured, but you can kind of look back and go, we went pretty far. And what if? The frustration for me is I'm sick of what ifs. I'm ready to make a run for it and to be able to really compete at that high level that we saw throughout the year at times, with everyone healthy and in place.
I mean, but you also got to understand, like at some point, you really, really got to lock in.
Yeah.
Finishing the season, my last year, I mean, we ran into Oklahoma State, Texas. I think Kansas was sprinkled up around up in there, Baylor. We had some tough games to finish, especially to move out of the echelon of being in a 2 or 3-way tie to being an outright champion. That was very, very important to me, and we were able to achieve that. Then we moved into the Big 12 tournament and ran into the same juggernauts of, Baylor, Oklahoma State. So finishing that out and winning that championship propelled us to going into the NCAA tournament. And I just don't feel like this team finished that exact same way. And that's one of the reasons why, we weren't put in a position. I think this team should have been definitely put in a position to keep rolling. That Cincinnati loss was definitely that first little bit of like, man, what are we doing? And we played well against some higher power programs through the rest of the year. And then we ran into Texas Tech, and then ran into BYU and some other broad. And it's like, come on now, we got to finish this thing out so we can keep that momentum. And then we get into the tournament and then finish that and win that one. That's how the cookie crumbles, I guess. Just came for cookie crumble, spending $21 for it.
My bad.
Wow.
Do you think, and we've kind of talked a little bit about this as we got towards the end of the year, did we run out of gas? Did we have legs? And the reason I ask is, you've brought this up multiple times for your teams that Coach Eustachy, you worked harder in practice than he really did in games because you work so hard and you're banging bodies, you're throwing people across the floor, you're running into tables and chairs
Right.
and whatever else that he could throw your way. And he's Coach Eustachy has admitted, yeah, towards the end, I wore my guys down in retrospect, should not have done that.
Coach Eustachy.
Yeah,
Coach
Coach
Ott.
Eustachy has made reference. Is Coach Otts falling into the same pattern?
Did he make reference to my team? I was doing that.
No, Coach Eustachy has brought that up. I've heard him talk a little bit about that in some other podcasts that that the team has gotten fatigued and he's taken a look back on. In retrospect, perhaps there's some things I could have done a little bit differently to save our legs.
Well, possibly, but we had so many guys that were so competitive. I mean, shout out to Clint Varley. I mean, like I tell people all the time, like without Varley on the team, you know, maybe it would have been a lot easier for me, but he never allowed it to be easy for me. I mean, every day, day in and day out, you know, he was a walk-on. A couple days I wish he didn't come to practice, but he was there every single day. And so it all made us better. So as hard as practice was, again, the games were easy for us. We took that punishment out on the players once we got onto the floor. I can't see, you know, TJ being anything different. Maybe, you know, the situation where, you know, guys are getting paid and it's a little different dynamic now to where how you have to approach everything and there's a little slippage in that, not necessarily because of the coaching staff, but and it's really not necessarily a thing about the character of the guys, but, you know, guys are thinking we go all season long talking about what's going on with Darren Peterson, who's a phenomenal talent. You know, 1 second you see him out there for 7 minutes and he have 30 points. You're like, oh, this guy's going to go for 90. And then he plays 8 minutes and he's sitting the rest of the game like, what the hell happened? We don't know what's going on. We don't know if Asian is in his ear or something. You just don't know. So I don't know if you could really put it on legs, anything like that. A couple of times did guys seem to be fatigued in situations, but if that happens, then, you know, you get stops and control the ball, control the pace, control what's going on, and, you know, be productive on that end.
So Nate Heisey closes out his career with 18 points. Tamin Lipsey also finishes his career with 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. He really held up his end with 7 for 9 from the line. And I got to say that, again, for the second consecutive week, Tamin Lipsey's really been playing probably his best basketball of the season, especially in these tournament games. These 3 games that he participated in were probably his best back-to-back games of his career. So I'm choosing Tamin Lipsey as, again, to be our We Will Pizza Performer of the Week.
Let's be honest. Pizza is something almost every family enjoys. You're already grabbing one at the store, so why not choose the best tasting pizza that also supports a cause we all care about? That was the challenge behind We Will Pizza. Create the ultimate frozen pizza for Cyclone fans. Big flavor, bold toppings, and options for everyone, including gluten-free choices that don't sacrifice taste. And if you haven't tried it yet, the real MVP? The breakfast pizza. Perfect for early kickoffs, tailgates, or watch parties when Hilton Magic or Jack Trice Energy is calling. Every bite helps benefit Iowa State student athletes, so your game day spread does more than just taste amazing. It gives back. We Will Pizza. Made for Cyclone fans, built for tailgates, and ready whenever you are. We will, you will, Cyclones will.
All right, I'm almost becoming professional. Did you see the banner that came across there? Huh?
Who's coming, Professor?
That's what happens when I get a chance to play around before the show starts. So, congratulations to Tamin Lipsey. Again, are we officially calling him the governor of Iowa now? Is that right?
The governor of Iowa or governor of Ames?
We'll call him. Yeah, I think he's governor of Iowa.
Yeah. Play well. I mean, whole career.
Now we have 4 teams in the Final Four, which brings up an interesting question. Would you prefer to lose to the eventual national champion, or
Which I did.
to lose, right? Or would you rather have to lose to the team that then loses to the national champion?
The eventual.
You'd
Um,
rather lose to the eventual champ. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because I saw somewhere like weirdly in the AP, I still don't understand it, but it said like in the AP poll, we were ranked second in the nation behind Michigan State, and we played them in the Elite Eight. Like, it didn't make no sense to me, other than the fact that we weren't supposed to probably run into them until we got to the championship game, but that is what it is. But, yeah, to lose to the eventual, champions and, you finish behind them, that's not a bad thing, even though we should have won it.
Well, and it's interesting this weekend. I really wish that they would reseed the Final Four, and it's a shame that Michigan and Arizona, who to me are the two best teams left, have to play each other.
Boy, how would you reseed it though?
I don't know. Visually, I don't think that I would have those two playing each other until the championship game. I would rather have a different mixture, whether it's Michigan against UConn, play one another. So then those winners play. I just, Michigan and Arizona to me are the two best teams. It seems a little ridiculous to play them in the regional in the semifinal game rather than in the finals. That's all.
Well, that's still kind of so. We take the two best teams. I think Arizona is the best team in the nation. I've been saying it all along. I got them in my bracket as winning it all. So you take them and you flip them on the other side of somebody else of the bracket, and which is going to eliminate somebody who had a better chance against a lesser seed. That's not really like, man, hey, we probably could have got to the national championship, but you threw them. You threw Mike Tyson. I was about to fight, Glass Joe, and you threw Mike Tyson out there. That ain't fair. How's that fair to me? So I don't think this is going to change. There's no real way. It's just how the tournament bracket breaks down, and once you get to the point to where you at, you got to play who you got to play.
But could you imagine this? So let's say you have Michigan. Well, maybe that's not fair either. Michigan against Illinois. No one wants to see another Big Ten matchup. So I would say Michigan against UConn and Illinois against Arizona, and then the winners face off.
Yeah. Again, like you said, don't want to see another Big Ten matchup, but that's how it happened. This is how it would have happened. But I think UConn like their chances of where they're sitting at right now. So I'm predicting UConn and Arizona.
Okay. Let's take it one step further. Who wins between those two? Arizona. I assume, right? Okay.
Yeah, I think Arizona is good. Arizona is really, really, really good. Have been good all year long. They got some, the player of the year in the Big 12. Like, people don't understand how good that kid is. Like, when you got a Tamin Lipsey, a Jamal Tinsley, Monte Morris, those type of floor generals that's going to be the grown men out there to put you in a place of where, I'd had Jamal tell me, no, man, get your ass down. Like that, that's not what we're doing. It don't matter if I want to dribble handoff and you give me the ball and me go to work. That's not when you got those type players, you can definitely make it really, really far. And as you can see, people, how many social media was on fire. How did DeBonsa not win the player of the year in the Big 12? Well, you can see what's going on and the reason for it. They won the Big 12 tournament and, won the Big 12 outright and then, possibly going to win the national championship. So there's a reason for it.
In other news, there was some speculation about Otz's name was thrown out there for a lot of jobs. Fans, we got to get used to it. He's going to be named for every job under the sun. The most recent was North Carolina. That seems to have died away. But realistically, do you look at Otz as being someone that other schools would want? And if so, what school? Is there one that you, Marcus Fizer, forget being TJ Otzelberger, but is there one that you, Marcus Fizer, would say, I'd take a serious look at that one?
If I were him or the coach or a program looking at him.
If you were in TJ's shoes, but you're not actually TJ, because I think only TJ can answer that question. But let's say you're head coach of Iowa State, Marcus, and obviously you played there, you're All-American. Is there another school that you would entertain? And I probably know one of those off the top of my head that's playing in the Final Four this weekend. But is there a school that would appeal to you coming out of Iowa State?
I don't know. That's really tough. I mean, obviously, like you said,
Absolutely.
Michigan, University of Michigan, that being one of the ones. But me coming from Iowa State, TJ coming from Iowa State, that's a little bit different of a dynamic to if they were somewhere else. Our connection to Iowa State is so strong. It's I get it and understand. Coach Matt Campbell did phenomenal things at Iowa State, but he's not really from Iowa State. TJ has been there twice. Or this is the third time that he's there, and now he's leading the helm. So it's going to take a lot. Do I think there's not enough zeros to pluck him away? I think there's absolutely enough. We've seen that be the case. But, he got to do and look at what's best for him and his family and the scope of how this thing with NIL and everything is formulating and shaping up. I don't necessarily know what programs are even available to even look at, for him. I don't had North Carolina found the coach yet. We're saying that it's dying down, but until something happens, I'm always going to be the glass half full guy because you never know what can happen. But I would think Gonzaga would be a good place for him. I think Mark Few has been.
You're not a fan of Mark Few. You roasted him repeatedly.
Listen, he's coached a few of my kids here from Vegas. With Julian Straw there and some other guys that a couple guys from Bishop Gorham, and they just get to the point. They even made it to the national championship and couldn't finish it out. So I think he's been. I think he's so far over there in Spokane and wherever it is in the state of Washington, people really don't, and I know that conference is going away now. So what's going to happen in the future? Because they've been dominating that conference for a long time. But he always gets there, and then he fades away, and nobody really holds him accountable. So I don't never advocate for nobody losing their job in no other situation unless they do something malicious and crazy or against the law, something like that. But I think they need to start looking at, changing the rim there. Although I don't want, TJ Otzelberger leaving Iowa State to go to Gonzaga.
Well,
Right.
I think it helps to having Allison Lacey, former Iowa State player. The fact that TJ's been there for so long and in certain, number of different roles, it feels like Ames is very comfortable for him, that he can see the opportunities to win. He sees the opportunity to regularly make the 16 and the Sweet 16, and things fall into place. You've got a shot for for this Elite Eight. You have a shot for the Final Four. Hell, I thought that was this year. I thought it lined up perfectly this year because you had, of course, the first round, second round games in St. Louis. That's a fairly short drive. You had the the third and fourth rounds right there,
Chicago.
the regional in Chicago. And then you had the Final Four in Indianapolis. I mean, it just felt like everything was right there available. I hate to go down that rabbit hole. That's what makes it so frustrating. That's what makes athletics so frustrating because only one can win. I want us to be able to see that success. I want to see it for the fans. I want to see it for you as a former player and all those that have played in Hilton to be able to make the Final Four. I want to see it happen in my lifetime. I think it's possible, especially under TJ.
Yeah. I would say Ames is just a different place to be. And once you understand, like you feel it. Once you feel it and understand it, like I remember as a kid before I signed and I was on my visit, and I don't know who plane it was or where it came from, but they sent a private jet for me down to Ruston, Louisiana.
You
I
wearing
didn't
your
even know
goggles?
Russ.
Did you wear your
Huh?
goggles? Wearing your
Oh,
goggles?
no, I had my glasses on. But on the flight in, we were landing at the Ames Airport. They flew me over, Hilton Coliseum and over the football field. And at that moment, Tim Floyd didn't know it. At that moment, I said to my pops, yeah, this is going to be the place. And so, we were there for the visit and went through the whole process. And Tim Floyd was like a salesman, man. He was. Man, they had to pick. They wanted me to sign right then and there, and I told him, I said, Coach, Coach Haskins was in Minneapolis, and he had a good relationship with my AAU coach. Home visit, a good relationship with my parents and everything like that. So I told him, I respectfully for Coach Haskins, I want to visit, see how Minnesota is, whatever. I said, but come Monday or Tuesday, I'll be signing. It's like, okay, I'm gonna keep quiet. We was at that hotel in Ames, right off the freeway. I forget that hotel that all the players and stuff stay at. But before we left, he came that morning and sat down and had breakfast. I said, Coach, I'm gonna be a Cyclone. Yeah. So he trusted that, and I visited Minnesota, and that next week I signed, and the rest is history. But I just felt like it didn't matter where it was. If it was Minnesota, I canceled my visit to Villanova, Georgetown, and Temple. Those were my last top 5 was Iowa State, Minnesota, Georgetown, Villanova, and Temple. So I canceled the rest of the, visits and things like that, and I just felt like Iowa State was the place for me.
So when you went to Minnesota, did you feel awkward knowing that in your mind your heart was already in Ames? Was that a bit of an awkward trip?
I don't, not necessarily. I think because I was a kid, so. You really want to think about it. And it was the same coldness. So I didn't feel like I was at University of Florida, Miami, or whatever. So, oh my God, this wasn't so. It was the same coldness. It was the next week. So I just, went up there and tried to have a lot of fun as a kid. We did some things that was probably a little bit questionable, but it is what it is at the time. But no, I didn't feel bad at all. I mean, I felt like I owed it to Coach Haskins, and Terrence Simmons was a part of the program at the time, and he played for the same AAU program as me in Louisiana. So, to be able to go up there, my AAU coach came up and, spend time there as a family and everything like that. He really wanted me to go to Minnesota as well, too. But then they got caught up in that, academic scandal and stuff like that. Afterwards. And then my current AAU teammate, Nick Sinville, was a year younger than me. He went to Minnesota the year after, after me being at Iowa State. So we would have been there together. That would have been fine and cool for all three of us to be there, but Iowa State was home for me.
All right. I want to continue to talk a little bit more basketball. So let's hear a word from some of our sponsors. We'll come back and continue the conversation.
In the heart of Des Moines, one name has stood above the rest: Iowa Beef Steakhouse. Step inside and you enter a place where tradition still matters, where the atmosphere feels familiar, warm, and unmistakably Iowa. Service isn't rushed. It's personal, attentive, and rooted in genuine care. And before the main event, the freshest start in the city, our signature salad bar, crafted every single day. Then comes the reason people have returned for generations: Iowa beef, hand-seasoned with pride. Guided by flame, forged by heat. This is where flavor becomes legend. Served with the same care it was crafted with, a meal meant to be remembered. And whether the night calls for bold, smooth, or something in between, our bar offers a selection as rich as our history, including the old-fashioned we've become known for: balanced, timeless, unforgettable. And long after the fire cools, the glow of this place stays with you. Iowa Beef Steakhouse, 1201 East Euclid Avenue, Des Moines, Iowa, where Iowa comes for steak, done right.
Gentlemen, let's be honest. Finding the perfect gift for your wife or girlfriend isn't always easy. You want something thoughtful, stylish, and unique, and that's exactly what you'll find at Styled by JJ Boutique. Julia Bradshaw and her team strive to be your go-to boutique for casual, boho, and chic clothing and accessories, helping women elevate their style one piece at a time. Located right here in Johnston, Iowa, Styled by JJ brings trendy, high-quality fashion that boosts confidence without breaking the bank. So, if you're looking for a gift that says, I get you, instead of I tried, head to Styled by JJ Boutique. Because nothing makes her smile like feeling beautiful. Styled by JJ Boutique, where style meets confidence. Visit our Johnston location or shop online at styledbyjjboutique.com.
When you walk into Coach's Kolaches, you might be a little overwhelmed by all the great choices, but do not be overwhelmed by how to say it.
What's a colache?
Oh, cola cheese? Colache?
Kolaches?
Kolache?
Like the shoes? No, that can't be right.
It's kolache, but it don't matter what you call it, as long as you call it good.
Start your morning the Coach's Kolaches way. Every single batch is made fresh at sunrise by Coach himself. You can taste the care in every bite. Craving something savory? Go with that branded Texas flavor. Warm, hearty, and packed with down-home goodness. Or maybe you're craving the sweeter life. Then you've got to try the fruit-filled kolaches or those soft, fresh cinnamon rolls that practically melt in your mouth. Got that game day fever? We got just what you need at that tailgate.
How's it going, man?
Good.
Tailgating this weekend.
Yeah, what can I get
Big
you?
one. Give me a dozen jalapeno sausages and 6 each of the sausage and bacon.
And listen, we all know how good these are, so you better get more than you think. So run, don't walk to Coach's Kolaches, 2777 100th Street in Urbandale, or call ahead for big orders at 515-802-6200.
Buying or selling a home is one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make. That's why choosing the right real estate team matters. The Jenny Farrell team with RE/MAX Concepts has been helping families across the Des Moines metro find the right home since 1998. Born and raised right here in the community, Jenny understands the neighborhoods, the market, and what truly makes a house feel like home. Whether you're buying your first home, upgrading your space, or preparing to sell, the Jenny Farrell team provides expert guidance every step of the way, from market analysis and listings to negotiations and closing. Their consultative approach means you'll feel confident, informed, and supported throughout the entire process. Jenny Farrell Team, RE/MAX Concepts. Call or text 515-779-7500. Visit jenniferfarrell.remax.com. Experience you can trust. Results you can move into.
All right, we are back, Marcus, on In the Side of the Storm. We have to be done by 9 o'clock or just before, since Bill and Willie are coming on live with their show at 9 o'clock Central. Wanted to continue to talk a little bit of basketball. Now, Brenda's gone. We've learned that he is at a track meet. Did you ever run track in school?
Tried to a little bit. You know, from a small town, like I said, it's just, you know, I have a lot of different sports.
I'd love to see a 6'8" guy out there running.
Right, 17 shoe at the time. I'm in probably about 8.5 now. You know, no track spikes, anything like that. But, no, my wife did. My wife was really good in track.
Really?
Yeah, really fast.
All right, Marcus, you've seen a lot of the players that are planning to come out for the draft, and you know, a lot of players will be declaring their intentions. It was announced by Alec Bussey with 247 Sports that Milan Momcilovic was going to explore the waters, as he should, get some feedback from the NBA before he actually decides to go. So there's a chance he could come back. Again, you've seen a lot of these players. Where would you anticipate Milan going? And would you recommend that he goes, or would you recommend that he stays? And one thing I want to point out is I was looking this up last night, the 2025-26 rookie scale. Last year's picks 25 through 30 were right around $2.7 million a year. Well, obviously, when you get up into the lottery range, the low end is 6 million to up to I think 14 million was what it was in last year's team. So money has to be a factor in all of this. And can you make a case for him to go into the lottery, which I don't think anyone really could at this point, but I suppose the right team, that's all it takes. Where would you slot Milan, and would you recommend that he go to the NBA at this point?
I think with his shooting ability, I would recommend that he goes. Biasly, I would definitely love to have him back at Iowa State. But for a player like him, what he can bring to a ball club, he can, because the whole thing with going higher in the draft, you typically are going to go to a badder team. So if he can get with the team, like we said, Chris got mad about saying the Lakers. I said, in the chat, that's exactly why I thought about having him at or San Antonio. Being in one of those situations, it can be really good for him. I can see, mid first round, late first round, depending on how the workouts go. They're going to bring him in to have workouts with a lot of shooters, and if he shoots the way that he shoots the ball, anything can happen. I remember my draft. Jamal Crawford was in the NBA Combine. He played about half of the season at Michigan. He ran into some eligibility issues or whatever went on with them, so he didn't play as much as he would have liked to play. But he played. He went to the combine and he played a couple games. And one of the execs told me, he was like, "Man, if you know Jamal Crawford, tell him do not play another game here." Literally. And I was going to my agent's hotel room, so I was, and just so happened they were on the same floor. And Jamal we was passing each other. I ain't know him at the time because, he was in college at Michigan. I was at Iowa State. I said, "Man, I was told," I don't want to say who I was told by, but it was a high exec. I said, "But I was told, shut it down." He looked at me, he was like, "Are you serious? Shut it down." Shut it down. He didn't play no more games for the rest of the combine, and he was top 10 draft pick. So if you be seen in a situation by a team that wants you, and you make a good outing, anything can happen. They didn't know where he was going to go. He went top 10.
So during this process, the players get a lot of feedback. And, I'm sure that there's going to be some sort of feeling of where he's going to be slotted after he gets through some of these workouts. Is there a recommendation that you have of, hey, if you're going to be slotted between here and here, that you stay, obviously first round. If you're slotted between here and here, you should come back to Iowa State for another year?
Well, it depends on, at this point in his career, it depends on what his NIL valuation is going to be versus what he would get paid, and being in the pros. So that's the biggest thing that I hadn't looked at the scale of where the amounts of the contract is right now, but that's the biggest thing to be concerned with and to look at. How much more better are you going to put yourself in a position? Maybe a couple $100,000 more, or maybe $1 million, two more. But, be in a bad situation, bad team, versus being on the team that you can help and, in a couple of years be up for an extension and, win ball games, possibly championships, and go from there. Because, LeBron, although we've seen him for forever, he's not going to be around for forever. And we say LA, and, if we get him to a place like San Antonio, how, that organization love the foreign players and things like that. So we see what happens. But I think you don't want to think about the aspect of the money side of it, but we're dealing with the money side of it. And if your valuation is going to be a lot less than what you're going to be making in the pros, you got to go.
So next year's team is shaping up. Obviously, we lose Taman Lipsey, Nate Heisey, Joshua Jefferson, Dom Nelson, and then Eric Mulder, who played sparingly this season. Those that are remaining, again, Milan Momcilovic is still up in the air, but Killian Torrey, Jamarian Bateman, Blake Buchanan, Don Plata, Xavion Mitchell, who didn't play at all this year, I don't think. He may have scored early. 6'6" guy out of Wisconsin was their Mr. Basketball. So there's one Mr. Basketball there. Averaged 35 points as a high school senior. Mason Williams, who did play, I know I saw him a little bit. He's athletic. He's a 6'5" guard, more of a shooter from both 3-point and free throw accuracy is up there. Of course, Cade Kelderman's coming back, we believe. Anthony Rise, who we didn't see too much of this year other than in some mop-up duty. Incoming, there's a 6'10" guy, buddy of Killian Torrey from France, played for Spire Academy in Ohio. 6'10", so they got some height there. A little skinny at 215. Jackson Kiss, a Utah guy, 4-star center out of Utah, 6'8", 230. So a little thicker, a little bigger, and I mean that respectfully. Christian Wiggins, who is a 4-star guard out of Minnesota, was just named as Minnesota Mr. Basketball. And Yusef Gray, another Minnesota guard. So we've got some talent coming in, and obviously subject to a couple of these guys not staying and deciding to leave after all that maybe we'd slotted for. I guess I'm looking at Mason Williams. He seems to have the right skill set. To me, he feels like another Curtis Jones, but again, until we see him play, I think that there's some potential there with some of the incoming guys that we may not drop off too much, other than we lose a lot of experience when you've got a guy in Taman Lipsey that played and started every game basically since his freshman year and was thrown into the fire early on. Nate Heisey, who played a lot of ball. Joshua Jefferson, that you're very familiar with, played a lot of ball. So we're losing some talent and a lot of experience. But, boy, the guys that came in this year, Torrey, I'm pointing at you, and Jamarian Bateman, they showed a ton of flash this year. I'm really excited to see what they take on. And Don Plata, he started out slow, but really came on strong in the second half of the year.
Yeah, I'm always worried. Maybe I need to do a little bit more research and see what's going on with this transfer portal when it opens up, when it closes, door shuts, and all that different stuff. Because you never know what you're going to have. If we can get a lot of guys to retain, to be retained, to stay on a program that was here already, have been practicing, things like that is going to help us a whole lot. A lot with bringing in the new talent. Things of that nature, but you can never tell what it's going to be until things are locked down. So we get it, understand the dynamic of where we are right now with the NIL and how college sports are. It just is what it is. But guys move on. We have the opportunity to bring in someone else.
So a lot of promise for next season. I'd be remiss without mentioning what's going on in the women's program. And not that I'm intimately aware, but I think we've all seen and heard that Iowa State is losing 9 players into the transfer portal. One graduated, but the rest are going through the transfer portal. So Kenzie Hare announced yesterday that she's leaving. Of course, we talked before about Addie Brown, Jada Williams, Reese Beatty, Reagan Wilson, Lisa Williams, Lily Talaleo, Tanky, Freya Jensen. We have heard that Evangelia Polk is staying, and we could probably thank Blake Buchanan for that. So that's promising news. Still waiting to hear on Ariana Jackson and Audie Crooks. I think that's the key right there is Audie and what she decides. Thoughts on, is there anyone left to turn off the lights and names for the women's program?
You know me, I'm always going to, be unbiased about the situation and call it how I see it. Something deep down inside is telling me that we're going to lose Audie. I think with so many of the the women leaving to explore other teams, other programs and stuff like that. At this point, what is the, especially as much as I love Coach Finley and his coaching, prowess and everything that he's brought to the program, but what are you going to tell her right now to make her want to stay with all the people that's leaving right now? So I think, with how NIL is right now, someone is really, if they aren't already speaking to someone, or even to her, about offering something to pluck her away. But I got a feeling inside that she's going to be leaving shortly. I hope not, but I mean I can't I can't lie about the situation, the feeling that I have.
I asked you a question before about if you were Coach TJ, not actually Coach TJ, but if you're in his position, what types of programs would you look for to even entertain leaving? At this point, Coach Finley has been there for 31, 32 years. We've had him on the podcast as well. At some point, do you think that he looks at this and say, maybe it's time, instead of rebuilding, I'm going to leave it to another staff to do? Or do you think that he looks at it as, this is another challenge? I've dedicated 30 plus years to this program. I build it from nothing. I want to be here, and I want to leave them in a better shape than what it is today with just 3 players on the roster.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of that comes down to what Audie ultimately decides. Just to be quite frank, I wouldn't fault him one way or the other. He's had a phenomenal career. He's battled through a lot of ups and downs. He's going through the situation now of the new place that we're dealing with NIL and women being able to transfer and go to different programs. So it's a hard decision to make. Again, I wouldn't fault him either one way or the other. Gino has been in UConn for damn near 95, 100 years, and he's still coaching. So I wouldn't fault him for wanting to stay, but I also at the same time, I would understand that if he was, was willing to walk away, and I call it a phenomenal Goldie career.
With all these players, especially on the women's side, that are entering the transfer portal, and for that matter, we've seen it in football, obviously. It's inevitable. We're going to lose somebody on the basketball team. It's a numbers game. We get it. It's the new reality of today's college athleticism. But as a player, when you look to transfer, do you have a number in mind that, hey, I will transfer to a better situation if that school meets this number? Or do you really look at the opportunity and think the number, if I can get better financial compensation on top of that, that's just icing on the cake? Which is more important, do you think, in today's modern world? Is it the money, or is it the opportunity or the situation that you were able to step into?
I think it's all of it, combined in together, because I know some guys that's been to 4 or 5 different schools in 4 or 5 years, and so maybe they left one program for lesser money, but then they put them in a position to get more money in a different program. A kid that I coached, Pop Isaacs, Texas Tech, and then went to Creighton, and where is he now? Texas A&M, I think, somewhere back in Texas. Frankie Collins, Michigan, Arizona State. Now he's at Vanderbilt. Guys, put themselves in situations, and because it is the way it is right now. Again, I can't fault them for it being the way it is. Something is going to have to come down with this, the whole, because before transfer, you got to sit out. Now they're not doing that. So you got to slow it down a little bit, some kind of way. Make it where, guys at least sign a 2-year deal or something like that. But again, if that player doesn't work out, is the coach going to try to get them to move on? A lot of it is being put on, the players, but sometimes the coach's situation is not a great marriage where they're pushing guys out of the door, and then it seems like the players just transferring. So it's crazy times that you really can't get a real handle on it. It is what it is. But you got coaches. Will Wade going back to LSU. It's like you left LSU.
That is crazy. That is
ridiculous.
Crazy.
It is what it is. But hey, we never thought Lane Kiffin would be going to LSU from Ole Miss, but it happened.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, before we leave, this is more for Chris Shipley. So we know that he's a big Bears fan, and I went for a run on Sunday to get out some frustration, and went down by Soldier Field, and there is a nice statue of Walter Payton standing out front. So for you, Mr. Shipley, a photo of the statue of Walter Payton outside Soldier Field. So
sweetness. Could you imagine the stats those guys would have had if they had the pads on in today's game? Look at these guys' shoulder pad. Look at those quad pads.
Well, in Walter, he was the modern day running back where he would run, he was elusive, but yet he would lower the shoulders or run through people. He would catch the ball. Hell, he would throw the ball too. He was just he could do it all.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
it's nice statue. I've never seen that statue.
Oh, you talk about a goat. He definitely has one. So, all right, we're probably going to take Sunday off since it is Easter Sunday. We all want to spend time with our family and worship. Planning to come back the week after that, and working on lining up an interview that I think will be immensely fun. We'll just tease it at that until we get that confirmed, but I'm really looking forward to it. Want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Obviously a little bit later than normal in the week. Usually go on Sunday nights, and so we appreciate Three Beards Media allowing us to come on early. Again, it's a privilege to be on, and we thank everyone for joining us. Obviously, thank you to Revelton Distilling Company, the original, and got them right here in front of me, as you can see by my camera. They're always by my side, especially during Iowa State games. Also to Iowa Beef Steakhouse, our studio sponsor, Andrew Downs, and AKC Marketing, as well as Style by JJ Boutique, and as well as We Will Pizza and Increasement Foods. It's really a joy to have everyone join us every week for Inside the Storm. So hope to see everyone next week, or actually in 2 weeks, as well as the official realtor of the show, Jenny Farrell with Remax. So Marcus, have a great Easter for you and your family.
You too,
anything special?
Nothing special. Trying to get out of hiding eggs, but we live next to a park, so hopefully somebody put some eggs out there to be able to walk the kids over there and just let them have fun. But no, nothing special. Go to church for sure.
We do every year we do an outdoor Easter egg hunt for the neighborhood kids, and we live in a cul-de-sac, and so it's been interesting because some years I'll be afraid to put out chocolate because it'll melt because it's so hot. This year, I think it's supposed to be wet and rainy and blustery, so the eggs will be hard and wet. That's Iowa.
Wow.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you in a couple of weeks on Inside the Storm.
Go Cyclones.
When the team takes flight, Hilton's rocking, hear the magic call. We rise together, we'll never fall. There's a cyclone brewing on the outskirts tonight. Jack Trice shakes when the team takes flight. Hilton's rocking, hear the magic